Am I the a-hole for keeping a massive secret from my parents? Original post, my parents, female 66, male 70, and I, female 32, have had a bit of a strained relationship since I was young. My sister was always favored while I was treated as the maid, which is why I left home as soon as I could. Over the years, our relationship has had its ups and downs, but I would never describe our family dynamics as being particularly normal or healthy. I married my husband, male 36, when I was 23, and my parents just about hit the roof. They have never really taken a shining to him and threatened to disown me if I went through with the marriage. When he and I would visit their home, he is subject to the same expectations as I am, whereas my sister gets to put her feet up and relax. Needless to say, my husband does not hold my parents in particularly a high regard. My parents immigrated overseas about 10 years ago, and my husband and I have only seen them 3 times in person since. We do chat over FaceTime and Zoom semi-regularly, but the relationships all function better if we aren't breathing down each other's necks. Recently, my husband and I bought our first house, and we are over the moon. We plan on growing our family, and we now have the space and the garden to do so. I am beyond thrilled. My parents are kept on a strict information diet, and we did not tell them that we had bought, mostly because they are renting a storage unit not far from us, and we did not want the drama of my parents wanting to store all of their furniture in our new house. We also did not tell them that our new house is much more spacious than our old place. As far as my parents are aware, we just moved because it's closer to my husband's job. Unbeknownst to me, my parents have been in the country for about a month and ran into a childhood friend, Dee, female 34 of mine, yesterday. Dee told them that I have invited her to coffee today, and it would be so lovely if they came with her and surprised me. Dee had no way of knowing that I had not told my parents about the spacious new house until they all walked through the front door and my mom lost her mind at me. The main points for my mom's yelling was that our relationship has been good recently, so how could I keep this secret from them? My husband and I were selfish to have all this space with no regard for the fact that they are renting a storage unit, and that my parents are hurt I don't include them in all parts of my life. Unfortunately, my husband arrived home not long after the tirade started, and he told them to stop making a scene under his roof. That is when the other shoe dropped, that we had bought instead of rented. Ultimately, my parents left after telling me that a true daughter would never keep secrets like this, and I am left feeling like everything could have been avoided if we had told them from the beginning. To be frank, though, I honestly never expected them in my house. They do not have the address and they live overseas. Edit to clarify, my husband and I are currently 36 and 32 respectively. I was 23 when we were married and he was 27. Now my opinion for OP. Don't beat yourself up over this. You did the right thing. You predicted this situation correctly. They just want to use your house for a storage unit so that they can save money. They don't care about you. And besides, you can't change the past anyway. What happened, happened. You did the right thing, so good luck to you. Now for some comments before reading the update. Their reaction demonstrated that your fears were justified. Rather than being happy for you, they were miserable for themselves. Not the a-hole. I know this is kind of comparing apples and oranges, but personally I find it hilarious that your parents have been in the area seemingly without your knowledge for a month, but they're also mad that you haven't told them everything. I mean, it's kind of funny. Also, my vote equals not the a-hole. Keep doing what you're doing. Which makes me think, how stupid is OP's friend? Like, even if I didn't know the situation of my friend, if I ran into their parents from overseas, I wouldn't dream of inviting them along for a surprise because I'd think it was super odd that they didn't visit on their own. I'd assume there's some bad blood or something. Strange move from OP's friend. Not the a-hole. It's a really weird twist of fate that occurred and made them know about the house. You decide what information you share with who, and it's your house, so your rules. How could I have kept this secret from them? My husband and I were selfish to have all this space with no regard for the fact that they were renting a storage unit? They were in the country for a month and didn't tell you. It shows how they are interested in your life. Also, exactly like you predicted, they want to use your house as a storage unit. Now for the update. Thank you to everyone who reached out to me over the past few days and for all the comments. I am relatively new to Reddit, so it was a bit overwhelming. Now that the dust has settled a bit, I thought I would update everyone who had been so helpful after my original post. First and foremost, after my husband had practically forced my parents out of the house, he and I sat down and had a bit of a chat about our options moving forward. From his perspective, he has watched me struggle with my parents for years, and he thinks that we have given them more than enough opportunities to behave in a fair and reasonable manner. I said that I'd hoped them moving overseas would mean that we could have a relationship on equal terms rather than them imposing their rules on us. But that has clearly not happened. I also spoke to my husband about my general feeling of abandonment when it comes to my parents, which is why I've worked so hard to keep them happy. I've also spoken about this quite a lot to my therapist, and I think the time in our lives has come for me to stop trying to force a relationship with toxic people. It is unfair to me, it's unfair to my husband, and it will be unfair to our future family. On that note, we have some very exciting news. I just found out that I'm pregnant. We will wait until I am 3 months before we start telling people, but I am so excited that I couldn't resist telling all the kind people who helped me out so much the other day. I also had a bit of a chat to Dee. It was a bit of a deer in the headlights the other day just to answer some questions that I asked a few times in the comments. The question is, if Dee is a childhood friend, why would she invite your parents to your house? Surely she would know the situation. Here's my reply. Dee and I grew up together, but unfortunately lost touch after high school. We recently reconnected maybe 2 or so years ago. And in that time, I have not really had much to do with my parents. She remembers how my parents treated me as a child, and she knows that they now live overseas, but I don't often talk about them. Next question. Why would Dee invite anyone, let alone my parents, to my house? My answer. When Dee ran into my parents, they told her that I had already invited them to dinner that same day, that it would be a nice surprise if they showed up early with her. She had no reason not to believe them and was under the impression that they would be welcome in my home if I had already invited them. Next question. Is Dee a busybody stirrer who intentionally invited my parents knowing the chaos that they would ensue? My response. Dee is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. She comes from a very functional and loving family. While she remembers the mistreatment I endured as a child, she also assumes the best of people and figured that for every bad thing that she saw, there were also good moments. Her biggest sin in life is naivety. Next question says, did I get upset at Dee? Did Dee get caught in the crossfire when my parents arrived? The answer. Ever since I was a child, when my parents yelled or got generally upset at me, I just shut down. I struggled to even look them in the eye, let alone get involved in the yelling. When my mom walked through the door and started getting upset, I mostly just stood there in silence. Dee stood around in awkward silence exactly when we were children until my husband showed up, and Dee mouthed to me that she was leaving and slipped out the door. She also sent me an apology text that night saying that she had no idea and did not bring them to start a fight. I realized that I needed to be a bit stronger when it comes to my parents, and I'm grateful that my husband always stands up for me against the bullying. Probably why they don't like him. But it is incredibly difficult for me to say anything to them in those moments. This is something that I'm working on in therapy. The juiciest gossip of all is that my parents were in town for my sister's wedding. My sister and I are not close at all, based entirely on the fact that she loves the attention my parents give her and has never once tried to say anything to them about their mistreatment of me. I didn't even know she was seeing someone. Anyway, it looks like I am the black sheep in their family and not really wanted, but my wonderful husband is all I need. But now he and I have gone no contact with my parents and my sister, although my sister seems to have imposed that on me. Anyway, we will focus on our new baby. I've been planting all the beautiful fruit and veggies that I will plant in the new garden, and we're thinking about painting the baby's room in a couple of weeks. He dropped off some of his delicious homemade jam, and life goes on. Thank you again to everyone who offered advice and or left a compassionate comment. Story 2. Would I be the a-hole for calling off a wedding because my fiancé is extremely frugal? Plus update. Original post: I, 31 female, struggle with my fiance's 32 male frugalness and not sure that I want to marry him anymore after a 3-year relationship. Throwaway as my fiance follows my regular account. I met my fiance 3 years ago. He came out of an abusive marriage just 2 years before we met. One of her absolute abuses was financial. She bled him dry. Made him buy expensive jewelry only to give it away or break it after an argument. Designer shoes, clothes, big house, cars, Caribbean trips, you name it. She made him pay for it. She also took him to the cleaners in the divorce. However, my fiancé is very well off. He makes far over 6 figures, almost 7. On top of that, he inherited a few million from his grandfather, and his parents gifted him and his siblings also a few cool millions. So yes, the financial abuse was bad, but he does not suffer financially. He has more money than he will ever need. So last year I moved into his house. I do not pay rent, but I split the bills and buy food. I pay for my own clothes and jewelry. I have a good job and I can take care of myself. However, things have been taking a turn for the worse and I feel miserable. His house was empty when I moved in. He had hand-me-down furniture, maybe 3 forks and 2 knives. He wouldn't put on the heating, so the house felt cold and moldy. He has no curtains, no decorations. His ex took everything not bolted down, and he was too cheap to replace it. Just imagine a $1 million house like that. I am grateful that I can live in his house. It is something I could never afford myself. But I didn't want to live in squalor, so I bought some kitchen supplies, some furniture, but at some point I realized I was dipping into my savings all the time and he did nothing. I looked into curtains, but those things are expensive. His house has so many windows, it is crazy. I didn't want to pay for this anymore. I told him I needed a fund to furnish his house. He blew up at me that I was just with him for his money. I pointed out all the money I spent on his house, the gifts and the trips, because he pays for nothing ever. Because he wants to be sure I'm not here for the money. The fact is, if we break up, I have nothing. The house is not mine. If I spend all my savings on his house, I will be left with absolutely nothing. He wants a prenup, and I am fine with that, but I can't help but feel used. Next to that, I am jealous of his ex-wife. I feel like she got treated and I am neglected. He proposed to his ex on a cruise with a $10,000 white gold diamond ring. I got the rhodium-plated Swarovski stuff that might cost $100. The proposal was at a picnic in the park I organized, paid groceries for, and slaved in the kitchen for. I almost said no out of just pure disappointment. However, I'm afraid to bring it up and to be called a gold digger. I don't want to be funding a millionaire's lifestyle. He loves everything as long as I pay for it. As soon as he has to pay, it is frivolous, unnecessary. I can live like a poor person by myself. At least the fact there are literally millions lying around doesn't hang over me to bum me out. And I would just be paying for my own lifestyle. Would I be the a-hole for calling off a wedding purely for financial reasons? Because I love this man, but I imagine our cheap wedding in contrast to his ex and her extravaganza. Will our future kids be able to have some luxuries? Or only if I pay for it? What if I ever become a stay-at-home mom? Will I have to beg to put the heating on? Edited to answer questions I see a lot. I know the abuse is not made up. His family and friends told me separate stories of the abuse that they witnessed. Not only did it confirm it, it showed me she was way more terrible than I thought. Like stealing heirloom jewelry of his grandmother's with Alzheimer's right after she was widowed. Pretending she was gifted these things even though everyone knew Grandma hated her guts. I did not realize or see he is doing the same to me as she was to him, and he is subconsciously punishing me for what was done to him. I am not trying to force a lifestyle on him where he was previously happy in. He told me prior to moving in that he left his house like this because he was depressed after his wife took everything, even the curtains, that it makes him sad and he wants a cozy home. He just didn't know where to start. His house is paid off thanks to Granddad. He isn't actually spending much on utilities either. House is very well isolated and has solar panels, so it is weird to see how cheap being rich really is. I'm not asking for designer furniture. IKEA all the way, and I have refurbished secondhand furniture myself. I'm actually pretty thrifty. I see where my jealousy over the ex and her lifestyle might have triggered some people. Let me explain. A $10,000 ring is insane and stupid to me. I do not want that because I would fear for losing it every day. I don't need an over-the-top wedding. However, it almost feels like for her he did put in the effort, wanted to give her what made her happy, put effort in and thought it in. With me, it's almost like he wants to prove how little he can give me. He talked about how he would see the wedding and it is cheaper than my actual financial struggling cousin and her wedding. I can't help but feel he wants to demonstrate how cheap he can treat me. And I already feel embarrassed about the family that would have been to both, and I feel like the discount wife. I don't like to say it, but it feels like he gets off on it to some extent. We are almost talking washing paper plates at this point. Yes, I did discuss selling the mansion I really don't need and move to a more modest house, especially knowing this is the house his ex picked. He doesn't want to do that. He loves this house. But I really feel intimidated living in a house I could never afford anyway. And so many large windows. Geez. I haven't talked to him yet, but pause on the marriage and counseling is a must. I already am looking for IC because I realized I might indeed be too much of a people pleaser, allowing him to control me with the ghost of his ex. I also am going to separate for a while. I am looking to rent something for a few months so I can get some space. Thank you all for the insights. And now for the updates. Update 1. Okay, I hope this update makes sense because I am very confused and not really doing that well at the moment. Well, Reddit, you changed my life. Thank you so much for all of your ideas and insights. Honestly, I don't think I would have had the courage to do what I did without you guys. I went to therapy, took the day off just to get my racing mind to calm down. Therapy has confirmed things you guys suspected. I am a people pleaser. I wanted to save him, and I have internalized the idea that any effort and every penny I want him to spend on me makes me a gold digger. I will have weekly sessions to work on me. I realized I would have never taken this treatment from any of my exes, even though I made more than them. The idea I had to prove myself worthy to be with a millionaire and not to be in there for the money got into my head pretty early. I called one of his siblings I am pretty close with and just told her everything. She was not surprised but just sad about how unhappy he was making me. She told me that from the day that we started that he had this idea that I was out of his league. He struggled to understand why I wanted to be with him, and he probably just thought it must be my money. She told me she already had talked to him in the past to treat me better. She was furious about the proposal. This information confused me a little. I was a little hurt she never discussed any of this before, but she thought it was none of her business. She also explained how she and her husband organized their finances. He also doesn't have as much as her. I took the opportunity to pack a bag. I haven't found a place yet, but I am going to stay with my parents. I made up my mind that I will at least want 6 months apart to get myself in order. I made sure my stuff was in the car because honestly, I had no idea how the conversation would go. So into the most difficult part, the talk. I waited for him to come home. He was pretty late, but I didn't want to sleep another night on this. Pretending I was fine while I was contemplating all this just ate me up. I had written down what I wanted to say. I have never been so scared before. I didn't want to hurt him, and I didn't know how he would react. I took some advice from here. I opened that I was moving out, that I wanted to pause our engagement. He was very quiet and just sat down. I told him he really hurt me by calling me a gold digger and that I am done walking on eggshells and feeling guilty for wanting basic things. I told him I was unhappy and felt neglected. I also told him that after 3 years of me showing up for him, he still doesn't think that I am here for him. It is not going to happen. He was just quiet. He didn't say anything. I told him that the constant comparing to his ex was unhealthy and unfair. Punishing me for her sins was abusive. I told him comparing her to me all the time has triggered me to comparing myself to her and starting to feel like she was worth more than me. One of the things about her was mostly ungratefulness. He would do nice things for her, but it was never enough. The thing is, he doesn't do nice things for me, and I have to be grateful for the pleasure of picking up the bill. I told him he was not ready for marriage, that I dreaded having kids with him and to live like this. That is, didn't trust he would take care of me if I would become a stay-at-home mother. And at that point, I just called him abusive and a user. I was getting pretty angry saying all this out loud, losing my composure and script a little bit. He remained quiet with almost no emotion on his face. I stayed quiet, but nothing came out, so I decided that I would just leave. Only when I got up to go, he said, "Please don't go." He asked me if I was pausing the wedding or calling it off. He wanted to know if it was over or if he still had a shot. I told him I wanted out of this house. I honestly don't want to live in his ex's palace of sadness anymore. I needed him to go to therapy, and especially financial therapy. I needed a separation. I told him I was open to couples counseling if he went into IC. He begged me not to do the separation, but honestly, I really wanted it. I just told him to think about it, and I left him. He was finally showing me some emotions. He was crying at this point. He sent me a very long text somewhere in the AM. Told me he was a wreck and couldn't sleep. He made all kinds of promises. He would go into therapy, sell his house, buy a smaller one, and make sure that I'm taken care of whatever happens. He said he would help me decorate and we will make a home. He again asked me to please come home. But to me, it doesn't feel like home there anyway. I feel very empty and tired. I have been sleeping most of the day. I feel guilty, but also a little bit relieved, if that makes sense. I don't know if I actually want to go back if he does all that. I don't know. I am a little unsteady right now. I need some time to process. I will go back for the kitchen supplies and my TV. I won't take anything else of the furniture. This for the exact same reason I was unwilling to buy everything. His house is huge, so the couch is huge. I can't take it. Update 2. Hi everybody, let me just say I am overwhelmed by the number of people really caring about me and asking for updates. Strangers who care about you is a feeling like no other. Thank you. So as I said, I left. I am looking for an apartment I can afford. My parents are helping out. I am living with them and saving up. I am not closing all doors, but as for now, we are broken up. I have no contact. The first week he transferred a large amount to my account. It really rubbed me the wrong way. He just showed me that he still thought that money was what kept me here. I deducted the couch, I left, and transferred everything else back. I asked for no contact after this. He has been respectful of it, and I feel free at the moment. I felt guilty for my needs, for wanting to be taken out every once in a while. The longer I am out, the harder I realize it was abuse. I have an autoimmunity problem, and the cold house caused it to flare up. Even after that, he kept turning the heat down. He would rather have me miserable than the pay for heat? $100 extra in the end of the year? The last thing that I heard is that he put the Palace of Sadness on the market. I have seen the ads, so happy he is going through with that. I heard from his sister that he is in therapy. I am happy for that, and I hope he keeps that up. He is keeping his promises so far, but I need to see some real change, and even then, I really don't know. I am building my own life for myself, thinking about getting a puppy. If I give him another shot, it has to start all from scratch. I want to start dating again and take it slow. Therapy is a really good idea. I know now I was just bringing this on myself as a people pleaser, savior, wanting this man to be happy so bad I forgot about myself. Never again. Final update. Thank you everyone for reaching out to me. I have closed in on a little apartment for myself and I got a puppy. After being in a home where I was truly loved, my parents, I realized how sad, cold, and alone that I've been. Over time, I went blind for a lot of things. Blind to a comfortable home temperature. Comfortable with thinking about every penny spent. Feeling guilty for buying that dress I wanted for so long that was finally on sale. Feeling entitled for wanting date nights. Being treated sometimes. I started to think about what makes me happy. I love to travel, dress up to go to a nice restaurant, throw dinner parties, entertain people. Think about it, Christmas gifts 6 months in advance, have a cozy home. And I realized just how much he had taken away from me with that one little sentence. Is that really necessary? Is anything ever? If you have a roof, food, bed, and a TV, you are there, right? Is travel necessary? Is having nice clothes necessary? Is a shower necessary? A haircut? A party? A hobby? A wedding? No. I know now that abusers are not per definition bad people. He is broken and he has trauma I have no time or energy for. He got free from abuse and decided to become the abuser. I know he is in therapy and we initially agreed on 6 months no to low contact, but I felt I was certain it was not for me anymore and I didn't want to keep him dangling. Breaking up with him was very hard. It made me very sad. I never wanted to hurt him and I loved this man very deeply. I wanted us to be each other's happy ever after. We both came from dark places and I wanted us to thrive together. His family told me I was the one. I was everything he was looking for and I felt so lucky. But we only have one life and he has so much work to do before he even becomes the bare minimum of what I needed. I feel failed, like my story has a bad ending. I feel very broken and sad. I will take my time to be just me. I hope he does the same. I truly hope he finds the one and becomes happy. Mostly I hope that for myself, but for now I am enough by myself with the puppy. Thank you all for the time and support. I am going to have a little cry and some fur baby's fluffy fur. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.